Let's go back to the unions for a moment. Jackie in D.C. writes, unions were responsible for the existence and growth of the large middle class. If Wisconsin public workers have benefits that today are seen as too good, it's because during the good times, Wisconsin state and local officials thought they could afford them. Public employees didn't take benefits, they bargained for them. Two parties at the table. The answer now in bad times is again bargaining. The real problem in this country now is that too many people who can afford to pay taxes don't want to pay. The rich want the benefits of America without the cost.
Well, I think that's absolutely correct, and Susan made the point earlier. I would also note there's an analog for that in the private sector. Look at the auto companies. Benefits were negotiated with the United Auto Workers in good times that the auto companies discovered 2 years ago, or longer ago than that they couldn't possibly make good on. And so there was a very wrenching process of deciding what do you do with contracts that the employer can't live up to anymore. And that's exactly what's happening in the public sector now.
And just to go back to a point John was making, I think nothing is more frustrating for the administration than the fact that businesses generally are recovering. The stock market's had a great recovery. Businesses are showing good profits, not just bailed out businesses, but businesses generally. And yet you don't see them hiring workers. You find them relying on increased productivity for the workers they have. They're being very cautious about the legs that this recovery is going to have, and that's making it harder for things like unemployment to come down.
All right, to Frank in Tampa, Florida. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yes. Good morning. I kind of find this curious that this issue is started in Wisconsin, and will like to hear your panelists comment on what's going to happen in California when a Democrat governor has to deal with the same issue, which is dealing with bargains that were made when times were flush in a bankruptcy-like environment. As a guy who worked in government finance for years, we've never seen a state go bankrupt, but if there would be one, it might be California. And the corporate analogy that was brought up about the auto companies not being able to live up to their previously negotiated commitments seems to be the same analogous position that Jerry Brown is now finding himself in.
All right, John Dickerson, California.
Well, I think the question is pace. I mean, and this whole debate is about whether in tight times with sense of crisis, and they all know the sense of crisis in California, is whether the pain is spread evenly. What's happening in Wisconsin is people feel like, is that the pain is being disproportionately doled out to union workers. It's being that under the guise of crisis, not only are benefits being shrunk, so that's one kind of pain, but that there is this special kind of long-term pain you're going to get from losing your ability to even have this conversation in the future. And I think that's what Brown will try to avoid. The pain will be the same. The question is how you get people there. Do you force them to do it fast and add in kind of extra pain, or do you manage it? And that's the challenge for Brown.
You actually see some discussion now in policy circles and on the Capitol Hill about whether states can declare bankruptcy, whether a sovereign government can declare bankruptcy, go under bankruptcy protection, and do some of the reorganization that you see companies do when they do that. A lot of people think that's a very bad idea, but it is something that is now part of the discussion.
I would just add 2 points. One is this actually didn't start in Wisconsin. This actually started in New Jersey, where Chris Christie, the Republican governor there, started this process a year ago and set a lot of the arguments in motion. The second point I would make is that, I do think that some governors are going to say, let's sit down and reason together. Can we come up? And a Democratic governor, frankly, has a better chance of convincing public employee unions to negotiate back some things than a Republican governor does. And others are going to be confrontational. So we'll see it play out different ways.
Why did Governor Christie get such a warm welcome at the conservative consensus meeting?
Because he's seen as a truth teller who's very effective and who took on big liberal causes in New Jersey and either won or tied at least.
He's this big figure, and he's very blunt, and he can be kind of funny. He's very offhand. He says things that I think other political people sometimes think but don't say.
Okay, so it started in New Jersey. California is facing it. You now have big deals going on in Wisconsin. Ohio is having a huge problem. Is this going to spread throughout the country?
Absolutely, because the states they all face the same problem. Now, whether they choose to solve it through getting rid of collective bargaining with public employees is another question, but the pain's going to hit somewhere, and it will be acute, and the people it hits most acutely are the ones who are going to speak up. Now, of course, unions know how to organize, and so they can put 20,000 people there, and we have this, again, as Jerry mentioned at the beginning, a fascinating thing, which is you have the national organizations showing up too. But yes, it's going to happen from state to state.